Good afternoon. I'm Deb Bailey, and I'm on the Community College Foundation Board. And this afternoon, I have the privilege of interviewing LZ Granderson, who will be a speaker tonight at our Diversity Lecture Series. So thank you very much, and welcome to Grand Rapids Community College, even though you call Grand Rapids home.
I do. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, I made some questions on the list, but
Okay.
I know this can go a lot of different directions, so I was hoping we could just have a great conversation. Can you just tell us a little bit about your career? You started out in Detroit. I know you went to Grand Valley and graduated from Westerns and started out the press. Can you just tell us a little bit about what your career?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, was that it?
You summed it all up pretty well. I guess before I start talking about my career as a journalist, I just want to talk about my exploration with writing, because really that kind of bled into journalism and more into what I do now. I started writing poetry like in second, third grade. Started writing small stories, short stories, a little bit after that. That became plays and then screenplays I would write as a kid. And then by the time I got to college, I wasn't quite sure what to do with my writing. I was still writing poetry, I was still doing, writing screenplays and things like that. And it finally dawned on me that there was a profession called journalism, where people were taking their abilities to write and actually making a living from it. So by the time I got to be a sophomore in college, I'd finally decided to focus in on journalism as a potential trade career, if you will. And my passion for writing has led me down this road in terms of all the different jobs I've held up to this point. Whenever I tell fellow journalists what I've done, what I've covered, everything from politics to murder to I used to do restaurant reviews here and concert reviews. When I got to Atlanta, I was a home design writer, so I was talking about, which curtains you should put up. And to me, it was, I didn't even have a house. I think I had blinds in my apartment at the time. But to me, it was all coming from this love of telling stories and writing and sharing through this medium. And so now, doing the work that I do for CNN and ESPN, it still comes from that same passion of just writing and wanting to tell interesting stories and share my perspective using these, this gift that I was given.
Great. And to go from fiction, poetry, and screenplays to journalism, it really is the love of writing. Yeah. So who were those people early on in your life that really believed in you and supported you and were your best coaches in this area?
Oh, boy. Let me see. I had quite a few angels, along the way. I had a gym/dance instructor in school, Mrs. White, who was awesome. I had Mrs. Jackson, like in fourth grade, who used to always tell me to stop goofing off. You're a smart kid. You're not like the others. Okay. Which I didn't think was correct to say, right? But it worked. It helped me stay focused. One of my favorite teachers was actually Miss Andrews, who was the art teacher. And as I was exploring with writing, I was also interested in individual arts as well. And Miss Andrews was back at a time where corporal punishment was still allowed in school, and so she had like about 6 or 7 rulers that were taped together so the paddle was about this thick. And if you were out of line, you had to stick out your hand, and she would whoop-pow. And she wasn't a small woman, I remember that. So she had some force behind that. But oddly enough, it was watching her talk about art in class that really helped me find a vocabulary to talk about how much I love writing. Until then, it was just sort of like, I don't know, I just like it. But listening to her talk about why she loved the medium of art that she was into helped me find a way to express myself about why writing meant so much to me. So she was really influential early on for me as well.
Sounds like she was a storyteller around her art that lent to that. Well, when you look at your career, what would you say was your biggest break, your biggest opportunity that really stretched you the most?
Becoming a father. Okay. That was the...
I did read one of your articles on parenting, where you were talking about parents getting control of your children. And I smiled because I've been on both sides of that, with an out-of-control child and also being affected by other people. And I was wondering about that. So tell me about your son.
Well, when you're like in your early 20s, whatever, you're just kind of floating out there. And I was married at the time, but I was still kind of floating, not really serious about anything, not really thinking long term about anything, just kind of enjoying life and taking whatever was coming my way. Once we decided to have a child, and once my wife at the time was pregnant, I grew up. It was like I don't know, it was instantaneous. It was like, I need to get my stuff together. You know, I need to get my act together. I need to get focused. And so just the simple fact that I knew that I had someone who was depending upon me to do the right thing all the time really made me focused and made me get more serious about my academics and made me get more serious about the path that I was on and what decisions I was making as far as my career, where that would lead to. And I tell them all the time, you know, you kind of saved your dad's life. Because prior to you, like, I didn't have a plan, you know, but you required that I had one for your well-being. So he was, you know, definitely the most important influence of my career, because without him, I probably wouldn't have focused in on a career.
Mm-hmm. What have you found to be the most challenging part of parenting?
Whew, girl, how long is this show supposed to be?
It depends on how old he is, too, to know where on that spectrum. How old is he?
He's 16.
Oh, okay.
He's 16.
So,
and let me say, first of all, without, you know, sounding like, you know, like a ridiculous parent, my kid is a rock star. He is awesome. He really is. He's, you know, I don't have to like get on him about curfews or anything like that. You know, does he do his chores? No. Do I really stay on him about his chores? No. So I can't really say, well, he doesn't clean his room. Well, I don't really make him clean his room either. But he's really, really a great kid. But even the greatest of kids present challenges. And so, you know, for us, the hardest thing I think is helping him figure out how to maintain balance. And it's difficult because, and you know this as a mom, that kids don't really do what you say, they do what you do. And so, you know, when he looks at my life and I'm juggling, you know, a couple of different jobs and, you know, then I'll still volunteer here and I do this and I do that, and sometimes I get stretched really thin, you know, for me to turn around and look at him and say, hey, you know, you need to pull back, you're doing too many activities at school, you know, it's kind of hypocritical. And so the hardest part, the most challenging part, is parenting in a way that doesn't make me look like a hypocrite. So he constantly requires me to reevaluate my life first before trying to present any sort of guidance to him. And I think that's hard because, you know, it's oftentimes we don't see that. You know, our kids mirror us. And so seeing those habits reflected back at you can be difficult sometimes.
and especially because they use every opportunity to turn that
Yeah.
mirror right
Yes.
at you. So what do you
Yes.
do then? What do you, when you get things out of balance, what do you do for renewal? What do you do to nurture yourself?
You know, I try to do small little, staycations, and then you have the big vacations, right? So the staycations for me sometimes would be like a 24-hour blackout where I just don't pick up the phone. You know, it usually is on the weekends, so my son is, there, so I don't have to worry about him trying to reach me or anything like that. But I just don't check email, don't go on social media, I don't watch the news, I don't watch sports. I just kind of read and just try to chill and just kind of regroup and recharge my batteries that way. I'm a gym rat, and so you know how for some people, vacation for them is going away and just kind of relaxing and vegging, not doing anything. For me, vacation is being like walking distance from a gym. You know, we have this place that we love going to in South Beach down in Florida, and I love it because it's walking distance from the clay court tennis courts and this gym that does CrossFit fitness. And I just go back and forth all week long, just killing myself, and it's great. And it just relaxes me and just gets all the toxins out and helps me kind of recharge my batteries and get ready.
You know, it's interesting that you've used the platform of sports to really address a lot of social issues and social change, where that doesn't seem like the most likely of partnerships of content. So tell me, what has been for you the most memorable issue that you've addressed that you think has been the most important?
As it pertains to sports?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, the most important.
Well, sports and social change, just because you've used your platform to address a number of issues that have not necessarily been addressed before.
I think I always think about the pieces that causes me the most anxiety or gives me the most fear.
All right.
'Cause
Well,
that's when
that's probably a good barometer.
Right. That's when I
Yeah,
know it's like,
yeah.
oh, I don't really want to say this. That means I need to say it, you know? So I think any of the pieces that deal with personal responsibility, particularly as it deals with, the two groups of communities that I'm a member of, right? Both African American and the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community. Anytime I write a piece that kind of hold our feet to the fire a little bit, are pieces that I'm proud of. So if, for instance, people are talking about, it's racist that our, justice system has all these people in prison for, selling drugs when, this is like the new Jim Crow and marijuana shouldn't be illegal in the first place and blah, 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 blah. And I'm always I like taking that opportunity to say, that's a separate conversation about whether or not marijuana should still be illegal than the fact that these are the choices that are being made. And until we start owning the choices that we make, then we can begin talking about why we made those choices. But you can't keep pointing the finger outward and never take any personal responsibility for putting yourself in that position to begin with. I grew up poor. I grew up with an abusive stepfather. And I know every single decision I made, both good and bad, both legal and illegal, started with me making the choice to do that. Why I made the choice is, we can certainly dissect that as well from a socioeconomic perspective, from a racial history perspective. We can certainly do all of that. But at the end of the day, the first step was me consciously deciding to do something either right or wrong or what have you. And so any piece in which I can write about that from that perspective are the pieces that I treasure most. I remember there was a big uproar down in Atlanta because gay men were upset. They thought the police were targeting them in the raids in the parks for having sex in the parks. And I did not say that they weren't necessarily being targeted, but I also was going, well, you do know having sex in the park is illegal, right? Like, if we can get to the first step, then we can also talk about the next step. We can talk about the homophobia of the police department. We can talk about how it's unfair that heterosexual couples can be found having sex in the parks, but it's the gay ones that are getting busted at a higher rate. We can talk about that for sure, but let's not move past the fact that having sex in the park is illegal. Own up to that decision that was made, and then we can move forward. So I like those pieces, which always gets me in trouble.
That was one of the questions actually I have written down was, what of the pieces that you've delivered has really caused the most noise or maybe the most discomfort for you? Or, well, the most noise probably is the best way to describe it.
I think it probably was the first piece I did for CNN.com. The very first piece. The title of it was Gay is Not the New Black. And the premise of it for me was that a lot of leaders in the LGBT community were, using the equal sign, saying we're just like the black movement, or this is just like the civil rights movement. And from my perspective, those are two separate movements. And I took the opportunity to talk about some of the racism that was prevalent, in my opinion, in the LGBT community that was being ignored, while at the same time trying to utilize the movement of black people to illustrate their larger point. And that got me in a lot of trouble. A lot of people were offended by it because they thought that I was comparing the two movements and was saying that gay people hadn't suffered enough or hadn't suffered as much as blacks, and really that wasn't it. My issue was the fact that whenever you pick up a cover of a national gay publication, it was always a white young male on the cover. Never a person of color, rarely a woman, rarely anyone over the age of 28, 29. And so we had all these other issues within our community that we needed to deal with. So before you start saying, you're the new black, maybe you should realize that black is still black because you're not really embracing us, and that these are just two separate movements. And either between the execution or just the fact that race and sexuality are just two really touchy subjects, I got a lot of backlash for it. And I got a lot of, thank yous for it as well. A lot of people, emailed and said, thank you so much for saying that. I know a lot of some of the white leaders in the LGBT movement emailed and said, well, what can we do to fix it? What can we do to address it? So it got a dialogue going, but I was called a racist, which was news to my white boyfriend, of course. I was called all sorts of things, but I was really glad I wrote that piece.
Well, last year I had the privilege of seeing you at TEDx here in Grand Rapids, and you did your presentation on the gay agenda. And I thought what was so remarkable was a couple weeks later when I went to the TED site, there you were front and center on their homepage, and that it's such a ringing endorsement for all the presentations that are out there that they could pick from. Tell me a little bit more about that presentation. It was in Grand Rapids. Because you had such a skill in presenting with some strong feelings, obviously, but with humor and approachability that was not judgmental on people that might not be in the same spot as you. So what kind of feedback did you get from that?
Thank you, first of all, and a lot of positive feedback. That presentation came from a column that I had written maybe 2 years prior, in which I was really kind of irritated with people talking about, the gay lifestyle, the homosexual lifestyle, because I had friends in other parts of the country who were gay or lesbian, bisexual, or transgendered, and the way that they lived their lives was different than the way I lived my life, and different than the way some of my other friends lived their lives. And so I was like going, what is this collective lifestyle that you think we all are living? Because I'm a dad, and I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do X, Y, and Z, and my buddy in Chicago doesn't get up until 8:30 because he doesn't be at work until 9. And that means he stays up until 2 o'clock in the morning because he doesn't have a kid that he has to make sure he gets up and blah, blah, blah. Those are different lifestyles. So what are you talking about? So the lecture, the TEDx lecture came from that piece, and it came from my own personal experience. And I'm really glad that it was received the way that it was, because I wasn't trying to be confrontational. I really wanted to be, sort of transparent. To try to take the mystery away of whatever it is you think is out there. Every significant national gay, lesbian, bisexual organization would tell you the most powerful thing that has changed this country's attitude around isn't the laws or what's on TV. It's individuals in everyday life having the courage to tell people in their everyday life who they really are. Changing hearts and minds one person at a time. That's been the main instigator in terms of changing our culture's attitudes. And so I took that opportunity to kind of do it, I think, in a larger scale. I just say, look, I'm just a dad, and I'm just trying to figure it out, just like you. And while, true, I may be in love with someone of a different gender than you are, at the end of the day, I don't really think our needs or wants or desires are that different.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it apparently really resonated. I mean, the standing ovation was instantaneous. And I think the other part that was so powerful about that is, and I'm sure you're aware that was broadcast to a very large high school population out in the Forest Hills Performing Arts Center. And I was so excited that there was this message to a large number of high school students. And I know you do a lot of speaking in high schools. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you do that, why it's important, what your message is?
I think it's important because I'm not quite sure if we're still at a place where we can expect our teachers and counselors to have that kind of conversation. But if there's a school that has enough courage to bring someone like me in, I try to make sure that I honor the courage that it takes to bring someone like me in and talk about these subjects in a way that hopefully won't get anyone in trouble. But it's important to me because I still know that high school is pretty unsafe right now for a lot of LGBT kids because of the bullying that happens, because of the sense of ostracization. We know that high school students are 66% more likely to commit suicide than their heterosexual counterparts. And we need to do something about that. We just had a young man not too long ago here in our West Michigan area commit suicide because of bullying, because he was openly gay. He committed suicide over Thanksgiving weekend. So that poor family has to experience every Thanksgiving now wondering what could they have done to help save their child's life. Should they have been aware of the bullying that was happening? If so, why didn't they know? And those constant questions. And I just want to try and do what I can to make sure that no other family has to deal with that. You know, that other students are aware of what those words are doing to their colleagues, to their classmates, and that teachers and principals and counselors feel more empowered to stand up and to thwart that kind of bullying, because it's not just boys being boys and it's not just kids being kids. You're actually really damaging people's lives, and in some cases those people are deciding to take their lives because they don't see there's any hope. And so, not to be too grand, my hope is that just my presence and letting them know that I care gives them hope. You know, a buddy of mine, Dan Savage, started the It Gets Better, you know, program, and you know, I'm so happy to see all the wonderful stories that have come from that, and so happy that he's so dedicated to trying to help young kids, because, you know, these are our babies. These are all of our babies, and I don't think any of us want to see our babies get hurt.
So, lots of interest, lots of things out there. What are some of the things that you'd like to do in the future?
Boy, first and foremost, get that boy out of the house. Graduated, off to a good school, independent. You know, the day that I drop him off at college, I will cry uncontrollably. I would need counseling. I would need someone to drive me back home or back to the airport, because I won't be able to do it on my own. But that, to me, that is my primary focus for the future, pouring everything I have to make sure that he's in a good place.
But he'll be coming back.
I know, I know. And
back,
you know what?
And back.
And I used to think that, you know, like, oh, God, you can't come back. And now as I'm watching him grow a little, you know, facial hair, and we're at the point in our relationship now where he's recommending books that he's read to me, where he comes and says, hey, what are you watching? I tell him this documentary, he sits next to me, and we just watch it together. So we're at that point of our relationship. And now I'm like going, well, if he wants to come back, he can come back. You know?
What's he interested in?
He wants to be president of the United States.
Okay. Well.
And he talks about it in a very matter-of-fact sort of way. So now I've bought into it myself, and I'm like going, well, don't let me screw up his future. Let me make sure that, you know, any skeletons in my closet.
I was going to say, get those cleaned out.
Get those all cleaned out. But no, he's really interested in politics. I try to talk him out of it. And as I said earlier, kids have a way of doing what you do, not what you say. And he's like going,
And you haven't taken any stands on anything, Dad? Is that it?
Pretty much. Or our entire library in the house isn't filled with history books, biographies of presidents, you know, all these other, you know, things that I see you reading for fun. I had no choice, you know, so now I'm sort of like going, okay, you're right, you had no choice. So he's on the Mayor's Youth Council, he's on the student council at school. He really likes that whole political process, and he's really focused on making changes. Early on, he really wanted to work in the science because he wanted to find a cure for cancer. He was just, you know, our family's been touched by it, and, you know, he just said to himself, you know what, Dad, I'm a really smart guy. I'm sure if I apply myself, I can help find a cure for cancer. And I said, yeah, you probably could. And so he was really focusing on that. Then as he was doing research, he saw all the funding and how it was being held up by a lot of bureaucracy. And so now his focus is, well, I'm going to go into Washington and I want to free up some of this bureaucracy so that the research dollars gets to where they need to get to with the least amount of red tape as possible. So now he's like going, I was going to think about being a governor, then a senator. No, I'm just going to be president. I'm just going to go in and just do it. And I was like going, all right, okay. I got a 40-year head start. I appreciate that. I can get some stuff done before you go and do that. So that's what he wants to do. That's his interest.
Wow. He sounds pretty gifted. I mean, in all these different areas and just a variety of interest. That's probably hard to keep up with.
It's, you know, is he going to want to be in politics 10 years from now, 15 years now? I don't know. He runs track. He made all county, you know, and cross country. His track coach is constantly on him to stay focused because he does have all these other interests and all these other talents. He's a gifted artist. So he is a really, really talented, you know, young man. And as I said before, my challenge as a dad, as a parent, is to help him navigate and make sure there's a balance so that he doesn't stretch himself so thin because he does have all these interests that he doesn't have time to actually just be a teenager. And I've had my moments in which I've failed at that and my moments in which I think I've succeeded. But You know, if you end up finding LZ Granderson on a ballot, likely as an independent, because I don't think you like either party, 30, 40 years from now, and go, oh, I wonder if that's, yeah, it is.
You know, when I was doing some research online, LZ, and nowhere does it say that LZ is short for something else, is it?
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Are you not sharing that?
No, actually, I've told countless journalists what it stood for. I think the story is just so
Well,
long.
it's not in there, it's not in Wikipedia. I mean, it's just not, I couldn't find it anywhere.
It's I guess the story is too long for people to like write it up. They're like going, whatever. But so my biological father's name is LZ, and the legal spelling is ELZIE.
Okay.
And when I was writing poetry, you know, in 2nd and 3rd grade, I was trying to come up with a teacher told us about having like pseudonyms and, you know, having like your own little special name, and, you know, when you wrote, it was different from your, you know, your real name. And so my first fake name, if you will, was Donald J. Kitt. And I remember it like it was yesterday because it blended together two of my favorite things at the time, which was Donald J. Sobel, who was the author of the Encyclopedia Brown books, and Kit from Knight Rider, the car.
Okay.
And I married those two together, and my fake name was Donald J. Kitt. And that lasted for about 2 months. And then my teacher was just like, yeah, that's just, it just isn't working. Maybe you should think of another name. And so I shortened my name to LZ, just the 2 letters, and kept it phonetically, and altered the spelling a little bit, and it literally has stuck since elementary school. And the funny thing about my son, whose first name is LZ, legally just the L and the Z, is that my wife at the time really wanted to name our son after me. And I was really opposed to it because my father was not in my life. And so I did not want to name my son after my dad, because to me it was like stringing together a lineage of like absentee fathers. And I was like, I am not an absentee father, and I did not want him to be an absentee father, so I did not want that lineage. I was going to name him Ziggy.
I'm sure he's really appreciative of
after
that.
after Ziggy Marley. I was like, he's going to be Ziggy. And she was like, no, we're not naming my baby Ziggy. So we went back and forth. She won. But the compromise was he could not be ELZIE. He had to be legally LZ.
After you.
After the new me. So that was the compromise.
If you had to do just one last presentation, what would it be? There used to be a lecture series called The 11th Hour in Denver where people had to give, if there was their last presentation, what would their message be? What would it be about?
Being present. I have a really good friend who just had his first child, his first son. And I've known Jason for years, like 12, 13 years. I've seen him, girlfriends and breakups and blah, blah, blah. He got married, I went to the wedding, it was great. And now, he has his child. And so we're texting back and forth. And he says, what's the advice you would give? And I said, be available, be present. And that's not just, well, I was in the house after work. It's like, no. Are you listening? Are you really listening? When you ask someone how they're doing, are you really listening for the response? Because when you're an adult, you kind of, gloss over that aspect of human communication because it's just accepted that you're asking to be polite, but you don't really care. When you do that with kids, they don't know that rule. And so when you're not present, that does something to them. And so if I had to do a last presentation, if you will, it would be to remind not just the parents with their kids, but just adult to adult, that we have stopped being present for one another and to be present, to be in the moment.
That's good advice.
Yeah,
hard to follow times when the world is around multitasking.
Well, that's my last one. I figured I'd be dead after that, and I wouldn't have to see what happens with the result.
You wouldn't have to be present, so we could judge everything you said. Well, thank you so much for the time that you have spent with us, and I'm really looking forward to tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.